Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the second half of Lazor Beams EX Episode 6. We're going to go ahead, since we covered Mega Man 9 in the first part, we're going to go ahead now and cover the topic we promised you before we even heard of Mega Man 9, and that would be the best Mega Man games in our humble and perhaps slightly justified opinion.
Honestly, most of these you should not be surprised by at all. I mean, you could say that these are slightly biased, but, I mean, you cannot tell me that these are bad games that we're going to be naming here. I defy you to tell me that any of the games on this list are bad, because I don't think a single one of them is.
I also think a few of them are highly underrated, too, so...
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I mean, a couple of them aren't, but, you know, these don't come in any particular order, so we're not going to be sitting here and trying to fool you into believing that spot number 6 is better than 5 or whatever. Unlike Lazor Beams EX Episode 5, these games are basically just... We're putting... because obviously we can't say 6 names at the same exact time without a lot of audio splicing. Basically, just understand that we're going to cover them in order, but they're not in order, if that makes sense.
Basically, we're giving you the order as we wrote them down.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily, spot 5 is better than spot 2. It sucks. Thanks for listening. Alrighty, Break, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the first one off the list?
Alright then, let's go ahead and throw Rockman EXE 3 out there on the grill.
This one won by a coin toss.
Yes, it did.
Its competitor was, ironically enough, its direct precedent, and that would be Rockman EXE 2.
Yep. So I'm a little depressed about that, but you know what? I'm fine with it. EXE 3 is an awesome game, and I definitely feel that it deserves to be on a top list.
I consider Rockman EXE 3 to be an extension of Rockman EXE 2, considering how much both plots are interwoven. As far as the Rockman EXE series, the only other time we saw that kind of plot interweaving was in the transition between EXE 4 and EXE 5 with Dr. Regal. But
exactly.
And
even very, very slightly at the very end in 6, where I think Gospel is mentioned in a one breath and then forgotten in the next.
Yeah, just kind of a glancing blow. Gospel, was made from Gryga, but wasn't as good or as complete. Falzer is a program that was made by the Science Labs to defeat Gryga's Spol.
Where did the rest of the backstory go? So anyway, it's all Nuven and Linky chips, and go kill the wily doctors.
It sucks. Thanks for listening. That is the new... Can we restart this whole thing?
Yes, it is.
Well, Rockman EXE 3 is the first game in the Rock Band series to introduce the Navi Customizer, last game in the series to feature style changes, first game to introduce the class restrictions on chips for folder building. It's got a lot of...
Last game in the series to be good. Ooh!
The rightful ending to the EXE series,
at least the first half.
I think we're well past the statute of limitations on spoilers for this stuff. So,
yeah.
If you haven't played Rockman EXE 3 by now, you deserve to be spoiled on its plot. Rockman dies. I just want
Yep.
you to know that he dies in this game, and I cried when he did because it was sad. It's also the
It was
last.
very sad.
It was also the last game I actually liked Rockman as a character in. Every subsequent game, he's basically just subby McGeneric pants. I mean, is it just me, or did Rock become very generic EXE4 onwards? It's like, in the first three
No,
games...
every game in EXE4 onwards was like that. The character development was completely shot. It just got sad.
Well, not only that, and the whole tournaments thing in EXE4, I mean, Rockman EXE, at least the first three games, was never about competitive net battling, which...
They had it there if you were looking for it, but really the game was centered around a one-player experience with a bonus two-player experience that wasn't, like, necessary.
And not only that, I mean, here
Well,
comes...
unless it gets to the topic of the two-player net battle exclusive chips in EXE2.
Well, and see, the other thing, too, is with... Battle Network 2, as far as we're concerned, is the competitive gold standard of the EXE series, but the plot itself of the first three Mega Man Battle Network games did not feature competitive net battling as a major plot point. Like, okay, there was the N1 Grand Prix in Battle Network 3, but that was only really a cover for a World 3 operation of much bigger magnitude. Whereas Rockman EXE4 rolls around, and the entire plot of Rockman EXE4 is about competitive net battling. And as a result, I can definitely see where people came up with the concept that the Rockman EXE series started to become Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, standard shonen trading card gamified, because, I mean, it did. At that point, it was all about, I want to be the very best, and to download them is my cause. So, I don't know. At that point, I felt like the EXE series took a dive, and that, honestly, unfortunately, that just happened to happen the game right after Rockman EXE3, which is the end of the old era of EXE. It was the first game to feature the plug-in pet. Well, technically, Network Transmission was the first, but that was a sort of...
In the timeline, that is.
Yeah, that was a sort of a retcon job.
Yeah.
He was probably beta testing the plug-in pet, because nobody ever explained how he got it.
Oh my god! Don't bother trying to write that into the story.
Hey,
it's so convoluted as it is.
But his dad does work for Hikari Labs. I mean, it would make sense at the very least. You can't tell me Capcom never noticed that. The truth is, Network Transmission was just based off of the anime, but we're getting rabbit-trailed. Rockman EXE3 is a good game, and it's one of the EXE series games that I feel is a must-play. Like, if you don't play any of the EXE series games, play 2 and play 3. And
if you're an adopter of the last three games in the series, and if the ending of EXE6 or EXE4 completely knocked your socks off, go back and play EXE3 all the way through. Check out that ending,
and
bring along a box of tissues.
Shut up and never come back, and don't talk to us again, and lock yourself in a closet where you rightfully belong if you still happen to think that EXE6 is a better game. I hate you.
I couldn't have said that better myself. But even as far as gameplay mechanics go, I mean, the battles in EXE3 are just lightning quick. Those are the kind of reflexes you have to have. In EXE4 through 6, you still needed lightning quick reflexes, but that was for a completely different reason.
You didn't have them because your shoes were bolted and screwed into the floor.
Exactly. You had to be able to see into the future in order to S-rank.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm sorry, but the Mega Man series is not about reading minds. It's about
patterns and,
deception.
No. It's about, figuring out a pattern, figuring out a battle plan, and, having fingers fast enough in order to deal with what's coming at you.
Absolutely, yes. It's not a turn-based RPG where you sit and you think through every single move. You have to be a quick thinker, but you don't have to be a chess player. There's a complete difference of opinion here.
But EXE3 definitely delivers as far as blistering battle gameplay. It's just you have some seriously, seriously epic battles in this game.
I am of the opinion that EXE3 is perhaps best noted, though, for its plot, as opposed to EXE2, which I think really put the focus on gameplay, because I am of the opinion EXE2 has a superior engine to any other EXE game as far as the way the game physically holds up under pressure.
I agree with you there, but if I think EXE3 though is I think people that were late adopters and started on like EXE4 or 5 or 6, I think they would identify more with EXE3 because it's more of what they're used to than EXE2 would be.
EXE3 is the perfect bridge between the back half and the front half of the series.
Yeah.
Ironically, the funny thing about EXE3, though, is I still believe... I mean, I am pretty much of the opinion that anything that takes place after EXE3 is... It might as well be alternate universe or something. I hold it, like, I lump it into the same regard as ZX or the like. Like, it's basically one of those things that it's so far out of the way that EXE3 is like the true ending, and everything onward is basically like unlockable side story. Like the fact that nobody knew who Napalm Man was in EXE5. It's like he just comes dundering in out of nowhere. Hi guys, I'm Napalm Man, I blow up doors. Hi Napalm Man, we like you because you got big lipstick arms and lipstick head. We use you to open door in Nebula area, okay? Me not like order taking from you, but okay, I blow up door, lol.
And I really did have the biggest problem with that. It's just no.
I just never understood what the whole purpose of that was. I mean, retconning is fine. I can take a good bit of retconning. I can't take that kind of retconning, though. That's just...
I can also play devil's advocate with that, though, because, I mean...
You can play devil's advocate with anything, though. That's the special thing about you.
Yes.
I'm seriously...
But seriously, I mean, like, when you get to EXE3 and Forte first comes into play in the actual plot... If you ignore the, basically the continue plus on EXE2 and you don't go into the World 3 area, then technically you never really met Forte before EXE3. And likewise, if you never did that, then you never met him in the first place in EXE2, so when you met him in EXE5, you wouldn't really know who he was. But, that's assuming that you're lame enough to miss out on another half the game out of laziness.
Ah, yes, it is true. But that's a story for another time.
Well, yeah. Sidetracked again.
Again, that's us getting rabbit trailed.
It sucks. See you next time.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay, well, we hit EXE3. Go ahead, Break, and tell us what the next game is on the list.
This game deserves to be near the top of some sort of top 10 list, but since we're not delivering any sort of top 10 list, we're lumping it in with all the other awesome games here. The original, well, you could even tie the re-release, the remake, onto this, but MegaMan X, such an epic classic game. Timeless, I still play it to this day.
I remember that when I first got into the Mega Man series, Mega Man X was the first vintage, if you want to call them vintage. It was the first retro Mega Man game I bought. Not the first one I played. The first Mega Man game I ever played ever in my entire life ever would be the Wily Wars remake of Rockman 1. And after
That's a good way to start.
After I played that, I picked up Legends, which furthers my love for the series. And EXE3 was the first Battle Network game I really played, but Network Transmission was the first I played, very technically speaking. So you can see definitely where I got my roots in the Mega Man series, and Mega Man X I bought right about that same time. And when I picked it up and I started playing it, I kind of just was cemented on the Mega Man series at that point. Even though I'm not the expert, if that makes any sense, that Breakman is, I am I am definitely a Haggard X enthusiast. I would definitely say that. I pretty much place the X series, the Dash series, and then probably in the third spot, Classic, right about at the top of my list, with all of the other ones sort of taking subsequent places. Uh, just because the X series has such a very unique and timeless charm to it, the tile work, as far as sprites go, the tile work in the X series games is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's on
Even on the first outing, it's just the whole like presentation completely grabs you when you first load up the highway stage.
the polish is obscene, and
Yeah.
the tile work is so good. I mean, it's on par with, as far as I'm concerned, it's on par with some of the early good Sonic games. And the SNES always seemed to go more for blocky, thick graphics, whereas the Genesis was kind of more of a stylized, artistic. The Genesis focused more on landscape, whereas the SNES focused really more on physical character sprites and easy to maneuver. The Genesis was a bit more artistic because it had less to work with. It had to work double as hard to make up for it. But the funny thing about X is it's sort of a perfect balance kind of game, and that the scenery is beautiful. You find yourself staring at things like lights and switches on walls and notches in caves and that sort of thing, and you actually can become lost in the scenery. It's the first Mega Man game, I would say, because it chronologically predates Mega Man 7. It's the first Mega Man game I would say you can really just become absorbed in. And the first six Mega Man games you play, you enjoy, you have fun with, and I'm not saying there's anything against them, but they're
But
not
after a while, all the stages just kind of run together in your head because they're
right.
nothing really pops about them.
No, and Mega Man X was the first game where they put a lot of effort into environment. They like the fact that they actually load different versions of the stages depending on what order you beat the Maverick bosses in, and that sort of thing.
That was such a cool touch, and I was always disappointed that they never included that into any of the subsequent X games.
It almost was like a sort of gentle nod in the direction of Sonic CD, because the obviously the good future, bad future, far
Yeah.
past, present thing in Sonic CD was a really unique touch and definitely what sold the game, and I liked seeing that in Mega Man X because, of course, being a hardcore Sonic fan, it was nice getting to see something that I knew how to relate to. The Easter eggs in the X series are definitely there, and they definitely pull you in. But I think the biggest thing about the X series, the two big things that everybody comes back to that you cannot miss out on, would be the phenomenal music, the hard rock soundtracks of the X series, and I think also, just as equally important, the X series, as far as I'm concerned, were the first hard Mega Man games.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there are some levels in the old school classic series that just make you grind your molars, but the X series, I mean, you start out in X1 with just a standard chargeable buster, wall climbing, that's interesting, but you have the most gimped health meter in history.
Oh yeah, like everything does like 5 points worth of damage to you, and your buster does like no damage to anything. I mean, they basically min-maxed the game in favor of the computer, and you're running around with nothing, and it almost feels like a Battle Network game in a way, because you're going around with, I mean, just bare minimum. Whereas, classic Mega Man stays the same from start to finish, with the occasional armor perhaps or item to help him out. Whereas X has nothing, and he just basically is thrown out fresh into the world with his NES zapper, and that's about it.
With his NES zapper and magnet feet walk wall goggers.
Yes, and he can't even dash in the first game, which I just love. I mean, that's just such a nice touch, being completely unable to go fast until you can get the dash boots from Chill Penguin's stage. That just was so... That was a nice thing that they added in X2 and X3 onward, is giving you the ability to dash to begin with.
Yeah, I like how that's the only ability that he carried over.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, we've
But I
defeated
mean,
Sigma.
think about it. I mean, why would you want to play as X with no dash boots when Zero comes pre-equipped with them?
Zero, though, he just struck me as basically the kind of guy that went down and bought all the cool Maverick hunting gear, and X was like, well, I can't afford any of that because they don't pay me enough, so
To be fair, he wasn't supposed to be involved with that sort of stuff in the first place. He wanted to take a more peaceful route, but he was drawn into the conflict because there was no one else.
Well, not only that, I mean, he's MegaMan, and I think whether they ever actually come outright and say it or not in the X series, I don't think that the legend of the Blue Bomber could be completely erased and hidden from society's memory over the scant time of 100 years. I mean, I cannot see that happening. And
No, I completely agree with you, but I also see X as the type to, this is my legacy, but I don't really want it,
Oh yeah, I mean, who would want to try to live up to the standards of the original Mega Man? And
yeah.
X realizing
them some big boots to fill.
Those are some extremely giant calves to fill. And X, as a result, of course, from day one to day's end, X has always been a pacifist. And whereas classic Mega Man, he starts out kind of like, "Hi, Dr. Light, I am a tool fix robot." And over the course of the series, probably I would say long about Mega Man 4 is when you really start to see the change. Mega Man goes from being a kind of robot character to stepping forward, becoming gritty, becoming experienced, becoming determined, and that's when Mega Man truly started to become alive. He got the emotions, he became a living machine, so to speak, and at that point, that's when Mega Man really started picking up, whereas X more or less stays the same from start to finish. So Mega Man kind of metamorphosed, but Mega Man X pretty much stayed true to who he was. Then, of course, there's Psycho X in the Ruby Spears cartoon, and...
Oh, go to hell.
Mr. Quick to whip out his Buster in Command Mission, but neither one of those characters I really consider to be Mega Man X. So,
No, definitely not.
X Command Mission, I would say, if it really is real, I would say it takes place like 15 or 20 years after X8. Like, it's basically so far future, an alternate universe, that by then X realizes, well, I can't argue with Mavericks, so just gotta...
It's just time to crush their skulls. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly, Hi, I think I might possibly be Maverick. Well, you have to die now.
But I still, as far as, the X games have come a long way, but, I don't, with the exception of possibly X4 or even X8, I just don't think that any of them will ever be as epic as the first X was.
No, especially with that little... I had never seen this prior to in my plays of the Mega Man X games. I guess I always shut the credits off prior to, or...
That's right, you told me you'd never seen that before.
I have never seen the Sigma Easter egg at the very end of the credits when the little screen pops up, and I loved stuff like that. I always loved the TV screen within a TV screen thing that a lot of old video games seem to have, and the whole Easter egg aspect of that was really neat. It's like this, oh yeah, message from Sigma, I'll be back. And
Flash had never actually seen that until I played through X1 within like 45 minutes when I visited him in May.
That was a really cool little speed run sort of thing that he did, and I was just like, oh wow, wow, this is cool. And it was a good. I was the like. It was a good.
It could have been a better, but I'm getting ahead of myself and don't want to toot my own horn more than I already have.
I couldn't play X that well. I mean, he went through basically taking nary a hit, and I'm like, whenever I play an X game, I sit down. I still can't beat X games without cheating. Like, I'll sit down. I'll be like, okay, walking. Died. What? I didn't even die. What did I? Oh, I fell through the floor. There wasn't
Oh,
flooring there.
it was those bats.
Yeah, it was
Those bats killed me.
Those bats, yeah. Okay, I'll try again. Like 30 minutes later, I'll be sitting there cursing the controller like it's the controller's fault.
Well,
And,
in your case, it might be you need
yeah,
better controllers.
I do need better controllers because I don't actually have an SNES, but that's neither here nor there. I have the X collection, so theoretically I have no excuse. I just suck at the X games.
But as far as polish goes, I mean, sure, like, you get some nice effects in the later ones, and X4 is just a gem by itself, but
X1
as far
has
as
polish in spades.
yeah, seriously.
It really does. And it's weird because, generally speaking, the first game of a series, as far as the Mega Man series goes, typically, when you're watching movies or whatever, first time is the charm, so to speak, and everything else just seems old or stale. I don't know, though. With Mega Man, it's different. Typically speaking, the first time is like the shoddy sort of straw man that they end up fleshing out in later sequels. With Mega Man, it seems to me to be the second time is the charm, or even the third. But in the case of X, I think the first game is really just about the best the series has to offer, along with maybe one other, which we'll be covering in a short bit.
Two others.
Okay, Break. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and pick one out of the bag, so to speak.
Feel free. Go right ahead.
I believe I am going to tackle the rather lovely Rockman 2.
Yay!
It is a favorite by a lot of people. Ironically enough, it's not mine, even though it is the first game I appear in. Rockman 2 is a really good game. I personally have mentioned this before, but I do think Rockman 2 is outclassed by Rockman 3.
Only barely so.
I think Rockman 3 is the more epic game, but Rockman 2 introduced a lot of the concepts that the Rockman series ended up really to
becoming
this day,
known for.
Yeah, becoming known for. For starters, I would say Rockman 2 has the most infamous soundtrack of any Rockman game ever. Like, as
Yes.
far as memorable songs go, everybody remembers Rockman 2. I mean, Rockman was the sleeper hit, and Rockman 2 was the sellout. That, like, I think it's the best-selling Rockman game. It's one of the best-selling video games of all time. It's the game that put Rockman on the map, and here it is today. And, Rockman 2 is just, overall, it's a bit of a kick, because it was lacking still so much that the later Rockman games stepped in and fleshed out. I mean, Blues isn't in it, Rush isn't in it, Roll only gets a thankless cameo like she does in the first game. It's basically just straight Mega Man versus Dr. Wily, and introduced probably the most well-known set of Robot Masters ever.
Oh yeah, and even their stage musics are just completely, rememberable for time immemorial.
I mean, come on, here it is 20 years later, and we've got awesome bands like the Megas doing cover versions, and we've got guys in Japan screaming to the Wily Fortress 1 music, so, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think it left a little
Then you've
bit
got
of
Dangerous Masashi Cat going back and, remastering these old songs and throwing them into the more heavy metal sort of riffs that the X series are generally known for.
I know, it's kind of like if Mega Man and Mega Man X ever met, that album would be the product of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like the whole Mega Man 2 has that whole just it's got that timeless appeal to it that even though here it is, ironically enough, it's the same thing that Mega Man 9 is trying to do and not succeeding at. Because
So far.
well, yeah, true. I mean, we don't have Mega Man 9 on our hands yet, so we can't really throw any stones at it, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Mega Man 9 seems to be trying to be I mean, the very fact that they said it's trying to surpass Rockman 2, if they're saying it in the context that it will basically be as timeless as Rockman 2 is, then that's a pretty tall order to claim.
Yeah,
because
now that you've mentioned it that way, that is pretty pretentious, isn't it?
it is pretty pretentious. See, before when I processed the phrase in part one of the the column, I was thinking in my mind that it was going to technologically surpass Rockman 2, and I'm thinking, well, whoop-de-doo, it's 20 years later. If it couldn't do that, I would be insulted. But
Yeah.
if they're trying to basically make it out to be like a better game than Rockman 2, that's a completely different set of fisticuffs right there that I don't want to get involved in.
Yeah.
Rockman 2 is the legend. It is the Mega Man game, and even though I don't personally believe it's the best, I believe it is among the best of the best. It's like,
I think it's probably one of the most important.
yes, as far as it is the key date in the Rockman series because it's the cornerstone that the entire Rockman franchise is built on. I mean, you have to keep in mind when Rockman 2 came out, it was Rockman and Rockman 2. Those were the only two games. You didn't have the Game Boy games. You didn't have the Super Nintendo games. X was a gleam in Inafune's eye. I mean, nobody had ever even heard of anything else. That was it. You had Rockman and Rockman 2. Nothing else. So there wasn't a formula to muck up. I mean, it was just, oh, okay, well, let's put two more bosses in. Let's make Wily Fortress a little harder. Give him some items, and so, let's make a weapon that's so overpowered it can kill, like, half of the bosses in, like, 3 hits. And
Except for the ones that are immune to it.
Law quick, man. But the ones that are immune to it, I mean, and honestly, really, who cares? Because they have different weaknesses that can be exploited. But, I mean, when was the last time you played a Mega Man game where one weapon was pretty much ultra effective against the vast majority of everything in the game?
Nah, Mega Man 2 was the first and last one that really did that.
I
mean, granted, everyone will, find their own master weapon that they're personally, have an affinity towards. But I think Mega Man 2 is the first one where, nope, this game's the best. This weapon's the best. You can't get better than Metal Blade. Nope, that's it. Best weapon ever.
And it truly, the Metal Blade is the best weapon ever. And
yeah,
it is, I mean...
You can't tell me that there is a weapon better than Metal Blade. No way.
There are weapons that try to be Metal Blade, like Shadow Blade, but there is no weapon that is actually the Metal Blade proper. And as a result, that's the magic of Mega Man 2. It left behind a legacy, which is the most important thing, because it left behind the foundation that the entire Mega Man series is built on. There are so many references to Mega Man 2. There are so many just unique things about Mega Man 2 that make it the game to play. And it was the first Mega Man game to include difficulty settings. So if you wanted to play the dumbed-down version for American casual gamers, or you could play the original Japanese version, and, oh no, Metal Man suddenly dies in 2 hits as opposed to 1 of the Metal Blade.
Blasphemy!
But it was Mega Man 2. I mean, you see him on T-shirts. You see, all of the influence that Mega Man the series has. I think most of it comes from Mega Man 2. It's a legendary game. It's one of those games that if you're a Mega Man fan, you have to have the original NES cartridge in your collection, regardless of what compilations you can play it on. Complete Works, Anniversary Collection, I don't care. If you're a Mega Man
Your
fan,
Mega Man fan badge is revoked for not having Mega Man 2
you
on
have
your person.
yes, you need to have. And Rockman 2 is acceptable, though preferably it really should be Mega Man 2 because I have to ask, is that Dr. Light or Dr. Wily on the cover of that game? I can't rightfully tell. It looks
It's
like
neither. That's Colonel Sanders.
it is Colonel Sanders. Yes, you're right. I stand corrected. Alrighty, Break. I think it's your turn.
Well, I did introduce the previous two, so go right ahead. I mean, this one is your baby after all.
Alright, fair enough. Everybody knows that I am the Dash guy. Ironically enough, I wasn't the original Dash guy. Kuhn is, as far as I am concerned, the Dash guy. Dash 2. There's only 2 Dash games to choose from, so it kind of makes it easy to figure out, and if you consider Misadventures of Tron Bonne, that's 3. Dash 2 is, as far as I'm concerned, Dash 2 is the Mega Man game, in that while Mega Man 2 is an important game, it's a legendary game, and its influence is great, vast, and mighty, Dash 2 is the Mega Man game that you play as an experience. It's basically, it feels like Mega Man the movie. I mean, you play it, it's the most epic length Mega Man game. It's long, it's encompassing, it is, every game series has basically what I refer to as its Super Metroid, because, I mean, I think, like, you can find any group of...
Yeah, that's a fitting description. I'll go with that.
It is a fitting description, and I think that it's, as far as, like, the actual Super Metroid, I think Mega Man X is probably the Super Mega Man, so to speak. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think that the crown jewel of basically Mega Man, as far as I'm concerned, is divided into 2 halves. There's
This game, I would have to say, is more like the Mega Man series equivalent to, like, say,
Ocarina of Time.
yeah, that's exactly the one I was going to name,
This
Ocarina
is-
of Time.
This is like I said, every game series has its Super Metroid, and the Sonic series, as far as I'm concerned, its Super Metroid is a coin toss between Sonic 3 and Knuckles or Sonic CD. Both are epic, both are beautiful, and you play Sonic CD for its charm factor, and you play Sonic 3 and Knuckles for its intense level of polish. Whereas with Mega Man, as far as I'm concerned, is divided into basically 2 halves, and that would be Mega Man Former and Mega Man Ladder. And the former Mega Man would be Classic X and Dash, the latter series being all of the spin-offs like EXE, Star Force,
Yeah.
ZX, Zero. Dash is kind of funny because it can sort of fit into either Former or Ladder, since it's got kind of elements from both, but I would consider Dash 2 to be more or less either the Super Metroid or the Ocarina of Time of the Mega Man series, and that it's the representative game, along with Mega Man 2, basically, and you put those games up, and Dash 2 is like, it's required playing. Like, everything else is sort of just subservient. Like, you play Mega Man 2 because it is the representative game of the classic series. You play Mega Man X because it is the representative game of the X series. And then, like, you don't even need to play an EXE game, you don't need to play a Zero game, you don't need to play a ZX game, you certainly don't need to play a Star Force game. You play Dash 2, and Dash 2 is the basically not classic, not X, but it might as well, it covers like all of the other game's bases. It is epic length, it has so much wow factor to it. I mean, you start the game off and, like, granted, it seems like a lot of older games, like every older game just about has an ice world at some point, but this game starts you off in it. Like, usually you don't get to the ice board until you're about, 6 or 7 boards into the game. This game drops you in the middle of freezing, freaking nowhere. Ironically enough, a dog ear to Mega Man 4, the Kalinka Islands. And
Yeah, seriously. I loved all the little hidden references in that game,
like
from posters to
the TV
manga
show.
digests lying out to
Don't
the
forget, the
the
TV
Mega Man
show.
cartoon on the TV in the bar.
Yes. And there are so many references. There are references to Misadventures of Tron Bonne. There are references to classic Mega Man, to Mega Man X. I mean, the weapons in the game, it's just, yeah, you sit down and you play this game and you're thinking, Dash 2 is pretty. It is not rendered in a beautiful sense, and that you look at it and you're like, I could just be lost in these beautiful graphics forever. No, Dash 2 isn't trying to wow you with visual appeal. Dash 2
Now the visuals are enough to get you by, and they definitely are a lot better polished than the ones you saw in Legends 1 or Dash 1, whatever you want to call it. But seriously, I mean, the graphics are really just there to portray the story and to involve you in the world. It's not meant to be a be-all, end-all visually, but it does its job.
Exactly. The graphics are the vehicle that the game runs on to convey the story, but they are by no means the actual game itself. If you're one of those people that has to have raw, beautiful graphics and raw, impressive visual cinematics with CG rendering and full-time ultra-combobulation, then what are
Go
you...
play Final Fantasy.
Yeah, what are you doing with Mega Man in the first place? Get out. Get out and don't come back. You can go sit in the closet with the EXE3 haters. But as far as us living in the real world, as opposed to your discombobulated fantasy lands full of vile electronical gamings and Jack Thompson, I have to say that Dash 2 is one of the experience games, and that you play Dash 2 because it's required reading. Only it's required playing instead, because you don't really read it, you play it, though there is some reading involved. But I digress. Dash 2 it's got one of the most epic plots, and it ends you on a cliffhanger, which I think just makes it that much more appealing, because once you play it, then you can sit and suffer with the rest of us in the boat we've been suffering in for the last...
Since 2000!
Yeah, so for the last 8 years. I mean, I look at it this way, hey, if Mega Man 9 is coming out, then, we might just get that cell phone sequel over here.
You go ahead and keep
Yeah.
looking forward to that cake.
Yeah, because the steak is a lie.
Exactly.
It is the lie.
And really, I think that is honestly my only complaint about Legends 2, is that it is that terrible, terrible cliffhanger. I mean, if they had ended it like they had ended Dash 1, I mean, hands down, best game ever. I have no problems with this game. Great game. Not ever, but just so awesome. But
You can
that.
You can close the book and put it on the shelf and say, I feel content.
Exactly, but they didn't, so there's just that little taint, there's just that little taste of agony, tainting what would be otherwise a perfectly perfect dish.
And that unfortunately is the funny thing. It's basically it's like serving you this absolutely delicious dinner, but only giving you like a half portion. And you're sitting there like, that was so good, I want some more of it. And then them saying, well, we're out of it, and we're never going to give you another one, and you'll never ever be able to have that again because the chef that made it quit. Oh, Well,
Is that a piece of Swiss cheese? We call it Star Force 2. Features a punch card system. Check, please.
come back. Y'all are like family to us.
Bastards.
And it is, yes, it is what it is. Unfortunately, the Dash series is tainted by the imperfection of incompletion, but we hold on hope. I mean, we held on hope for Mega Man 9. Granted, we're not happy with it, but
It's something.
yeah, it's something. And of course, there's that Dash cell phone game in Japan.
Which we'll probably still never see.
Yeah, just like Rockman Strategy.
Which we don't care if we ever see.
Battleship Stadium.
Eh.
Rockman 4, EXE 4.5.
Okay, stop. That was a little too close for my likings. Thanks very much.
Rockman.
I'm gonna go to sleep hating the world now. Not like I don't do that every night, but hey.
Rockman and Forte Wonder Swan.
Oh God, keep that to Japan.
Keep it in Japan and don't ever bring it over here.
Yeah. Keep it on your lawn.
Well, I think we have just about reached the end of the list. We have two more, if memory serves right.
That is absolutely correct. I originally thought you were going to mention this one first because this one is also your baby. But, I'm going to send it off because, I'd also have very fond memories of this game. It's not my favorite in the classic series, but it's the one that introduced Breakman, Blues, Proto Man. So, Mega Man 3, ladies and germs, the other quintessential important title in the classic Mega Man series. Because, most of the concepts that lasted throughout the series were introduced right here.
It's fascinating to me how your origin game is my favorite and vice versa.
Yeah, I love how that works. And when you think about it, too, the two most important, in our opinion, games for the EXE series correlates to Classic as well.
Absolutely.
EXE2 started it set the standard in the Battle Network series, and EXE3 introduced other concepts that would carry on through the end of the series, and it was the same way with these two.
And it's interesting because I would say EXE2 is probably one of the most successful EXE games because it really helped to launch the anime, and it really helped to launch the direction that Mega Man ultimately ended up going in for the EXE series. And here we are with Classic, and it's basically the same thing. Classic 2 was the successful one, and Classic 3 was the epic. It was basically like Classic 3 said, I am going to do everything Classic 2 did, but better. And Classic 2 was like, but I did it first. And Classic 3 is like, yeah, and you did do it first. And it's kind of like this...
I can't take that from you, but at the same time, give me the respect that I deserve, because look what I did. Oh yeah, I'll give you that, but still, I'm older than you, so get off my lawn.
Rockman 3.
Yes.
Well, as far as canon Rockman games go, it has the most Robot Masters in it, with 16 appearing in the game. Technically 9 if you consider the Doc Robot to be the same Robot Master, but I don't.
No, I more see the Doc Robot as a vessel than really being his own Robot Master.
Well, not only that, the Doc Robot gets destroyed at the end of each fight, so there are at least 8 Doc Robots that we know of, unless you're saying that he just teleports out, but I clearly see island-y explosions of goodness, so...
Well, you could go the Mandy Paw route and say that he's carrying energy shields,
Well, you know what? Since Mini Book 5 was risen from the ashes recently, And since this column is the promised column that we've been promising for promising amounts of time,
It's fitting.
it is fitting. So yeah, we'll go ahead and go the Mandy Paw route and say that, okay, that makes sense. But even still, why would Wily bother to put that technology in the Doc robot in the first place? I mean, it's just basically a glorified fortress boss.
I think really what he was trying to accomplish with that, as far as story purposes go, is Mega Man had defeated the 8 Robot Masters, and Wily still needed more time to carry out his final plan, so he sent out the Doc Robot to stall.
Of building Gamma, basically, because that was the big gun that Wily had. I'm sorry, I love how Gamma is weak to the most impractical weapon in the entire series, and
It is so funny to me.
it is funny because, I mean, of course, if anybody has ever read one of our great magnum opuses, the Mighty Rockman cliché list, then you guys would definitely know that that topic has been covered numerous times before. But nonetheless, just wow, top spin. I mean, it's kind of like Breakman noted, the poor sap that thought to use the bubble lead, who thought to use the top spin against Gamma? I mean, I guess it kind of gives you like a subtle clue, like can't hop up on the platforms, but who is going to hop up on the platforms, then throw on the top spin and dive face first into the final boss?
Seriously, I mean, I would have rather, like, chucked search snakes at him.
Oh,
But
yeah.
no, it's like, oh no, use the top spin. What? Really? Oh, no, come on. No. What really? Ah, damn it.
And the thing about the top
Right.
And the thing about the top spin is you use it and you don't know if it's going to eat up one energy dot or all of them. You don't know if you're going to take a hit or not. I mean, it's basically...
Yeah, have fun with Shadow Man.
But top spin is basically roll 1d20 to win. And you're sitting there, it's basically, or you roll 2d20, one for damage dealt enemy, one for damage dealt Mega Man, and then like a third one should be one for damage dealt weapon meter. Because
Yeah.
just, you know, and it's always like, okay, you know, and I mean, I've gotten into fights with Shadow Man where I use the top spin on him, it does like 2 blips of damage off of his health meter.
I've had a fight where, like, I jump into him, top spin, and he dies instantly.
Yeah, it's like, okay, whatever. The top spin is a total gamble, and
It is a complete crapshoot.
it is a complete crapshoot, and you use it, and you just basically hope that it wins. I mean, because that's all there is to it. And
You hope that it wins because otherwise, in every other aspect, it fails.
Mega Man 3 introduced this gem of a weapon to us. Mega Man 3 has, as ironically enough, whereas Mega Man 2 has some of the best weapons and best robot masters, Mega Man 3 has some of the worst, and which is funny because, I mean, let's look at the stellar list of weapons. You have the Hard Knuckle, which takes like an hour and a half to get across the screen, and it's ridiculously telegraphed. So it only...
I think the fact that you can kind of sort of not really, tilt it up or tilt it down helps it out a little bit, but otherwise it's just, why bother?
You use the Hard Knuckle for breaking down walls, for the one robot master that can't jump, and
Yeah.
for dodging the law and jumping bridges in the General Lee. That's what the Hard Knuckle is there for. The Search Snake. Oh wow, the Search Snake is... There's a stylish weapon for
Yay!
you.
Bubble lead!
Exactly, it's bubble lead. It's rapid fire bubble lead. You have the Gemini laser, which is like my least favorite weapon ever. I don't even see any... I have never seen a practical use for the
It's
Gemini
not
laser.
practical, exactly.
No,
I
it's
mean,
like, okay,
is
here,
there even anyone that it's weak to, or that it's weak to it?
Needle Man of all crazy robot masters is weak to that thing. I never understood
Who
that.
cares?
Yeah, you just end up buster dueling him anyway. Then you've got the magnet missile, which, yay, Dr. Light finally made a robot that can shoot up. Oh wait, just kidding, that was Dr. Wily. Fool.
Oh, owned.
And the unfortunate thing...
Magnet Man was a pretty fun fight, though.
He is a fun fight, but his weapon is...
Terrible.
terrible. You've got the Shadow Blade, which is like... After you come down off of the Metal Blade high... You get the
That's
Shadow
like the
Blade.
weapon you cling to for most of the game until you realize, wow, this kind of sucks ass.
Yeah, this is not the Metal Blade. This wishes it was the Metal Blade. You've got the Needle Cannon, which is basically the Mega
Another
Buster.
buster.
Yeah, it's another buster that runs out of ammo and does slightly more damage. You've got the top spin, as we mentioned that already.
Covered in spades.
You've got the Spark Shock, which, as I recall, doesn't actually do any damage at all. It just stuns things. And, it only works on Magnet Man.
Generic projectile weapon, go.
One of the interesting things about Mega Man 3 is that you can use any Robot Master's weapon against them, and it'll kill them in 7 hits. I don't know if that works with Top Man, but I've tested it with the other ones, and sure enough, you can kill any of them in 7 hits with their own weapons, which is kind of a neat little trick that you can do. Another interesting thing about Mega Man 3 is that the bosses go in a set of 2 loops. 5 Robot Masters are in one loop, and 3 are in the other, so
Yeah, that's weird how they did that.
you can't jump from like this guy to this guy and then this guy and do it in a complete set of 8 loop. It's kind of like Mega Man 2 in that it's got
Yeah.
broken loops because of the fact that like half of the Robot Masters are weak to the Metal Blade. So basically it's Metal Man and then whoever you want to get out of the way first. But yeah, Rockman 3 it's a sort of interesting game because, you have the visit all 8 Robot Masters to get their weapons, and then 4 of their stages open back up as harder, more intense stages with 2 boss fights to each stage. So it's
Yeah, I never understood why they did that. I think Mandy tried to explain it as Mega Man's teleporter going all wonky. Or being like, having like an interrupt frequency being imposed on it or something like that. But
Well,
I never really understood why they did that.
I think my explanation for that, as far as canonical would go, would be, of course, the 8 Robot Masters are causing havoc. Mega Man goes and defeats them, and then, like you said, Wily stalling for time sends the Doc Robot back out to go basically screw with more things. So Mega Man has to go stop the Doc Robot this time, and while he's off fighting him, Wily is finishing up Gamma and completely forgetting to top-proof his windshield. That's Wily for you. But he gets to the, then finally once Mega Man's done beating down all the flunkies, either the Skull Fortress is discovered or Wily sends him the coordinates himself, and that's that. I mean, that's one of the interesting things.
That was when Wily escaped with Gamma. Oh no, Mega Man! It looks like I'm a dumbass and Dr. Wily's really still evil. Crap.
With his IBN computer.
Yeah.
What is that, like International Business Nugget Heads? What does the N stand for? Oh no, it's the Captain N computer, isn't it?
It very well might be.
Dr. Light used it to create Mega Girl, who then he later transformed into Roll, a super house clean robot.
I say IBN stands for Idiot Butt Nugget, because that certainly seems to fit Dr. Light for the Mega Man 3 plot.
Dr. Light is a moron. I mean, I am sorry.
Now, why would anyone bar the outside of the bathroom door?
Oh no!
And then one of my personal favorites. Oh no, not rock and roll! Dr. Light just is clueless. I mean, he's got basically like the ineptitude level of the professor from Gilligan's Island. He's just like, the kind of guy who can totally figure out the circumference of something in the 4th dimension, but he can't come up with, I don't know, a way to keep another senile old fart from taking over the world with cleverly constructed robots that are based off of stolen robots. I mean, why doesn't Dr. Light he was able to build Mega Man, why doesn't he just build like a weapon that, I don't know, like a non-lethal capture net? I mean, but why doesn't he give Mega Man basically a master ball and just send him after Wily?
Well, that's what happens anyway, and Wily just still breaks out.
Wily breaks out because Wily's a cheater. I mean,
Yeah, Wily hacks.
and that's the other thing. Wily is just as big of a moron because, what keeps him from sending all of the Robot Masters against Mega Man at once? Like luring him into a trap and then ganging up on him. Why does Wily fight fair?
See, you'd like to know, but really, that's just all part of his master plan.
Wily's next robot is going to be built out of diamonds. I know it.
Yep.
His name's
And it'll be super, and the weapon super effective against it will be, of course,
a glass cutter.
Yep.
Oh man, no, what would be really awesome is if it was like Window Man, because you know how people test real or fake diamonds by dragging them on a window to see if they scratch?
Yeah.
That would be pretty funny.
Oh wow, we are getting totally off topic here.
We are. You're gonna have to edit this like crazy crap.
It'll be fun.
Well, here we are on the last game of the 6, and that would be another personal favorite of mine. This is my other favorite from the X series. A lot of people...
Oh, and this is definitely high up there on my list of favorite X games, and it's hard to please me for a good X game.
Yeah, especially considering that kind of just subtle gap between 4 and 8. Those 3 games that just kind of fell in there,
Those ones that weren't made?
Yeah.
According to you?
The ones that don't exist, that's right. I've never played a game called Mega Man X7, and I certainly have no clue who this Red is of which you speak. No, never ever fought a Mega Man character named Red, ever, and I certainly didn't spend 2 years trying to beat him. No, that would just be insane. So anyway, Mega Man X8, yes, it's a wonderful game. Mega Man X8...
I think this game was I'm not a fan of the restyle of the character restyling, the art direction that they took, but I think this game is particularly epic and necessary for making X important again.
As far as the Mega Man games go, I think it's the prettiest of the... As far as pretty factor goes, like glitz and glamour, it's the prettiest Mega Man game. It was the last console Mega Man game we got. It was one of the last good Mega Man games we got. X8 pleased a lot of people. It had difficulty levels ranging from basically silver platter to insane.
Oh god, like that like the room in what was it?
Demonic Sunflower stage, or oh no, you're referencing the block thing from Gravity and
Yes, the spiked blocks.
Yes. Oh dear, yes.
Oh my god, that room was a nightmare.
I spent hours in that room. Yeah, and it gets worse with every difficulty level. Like on the highest one, you could be in there.
When I reach that room, I pray that Vile shows up to challenge me. Because he will in that room. I was lucky enough to get him in that room once, but I was not ready for him, and I got wiped, went into the room again, and had to deal with the bloody spiked block destruction BS.
I do sincerely hate that room, but as far as music, X8 has some of the best music in the series.
I actually have that soundtrack in my car so I can slam to it whenever I want.
It has a decidedly different feel than the other X games go, because while it is still very much the hard rock feel of the X series...
It's almost exclusively that now.
And X8 is a little bit different because it also has a lot of very easy listening on it, too. Calm, not really elevator music, but it's like the kind of good elevator music sort of feel. Like you can step in and take a breather in the R&D lab, and you can save your game and listen to the peaceful music. X8 is one of those games you put on and you crank the stereo full blast when you play it. You're like, I love this music. It is an immersion, and it's a treat for the eyes, a treat for the ears. The gameplay is good. My one complaint about X8 is the characters seem to move a little fast for me. I kind of don't like that because, like, I'm unused to them, pushing the control stick in a direction and them taking off and running. Fast MegaMan characters don't really work very well because those stages are not built for speed and navigation. But, X8 has a lot of just beautiful art, beautiful everything. It introduces new characters that don't suck. I love that. I love,
Except for Palette.
Well, nobody likes Palette. But I love Lair. Lair is like, as far as X characters go, Lair is my favorite X character. There's just a unique charm about her that she's not.
And I really liked, speaking of the spotters, I really liked that they all had their own unique purposes. Yes,
that was really nice. You go with Alia when you really don't have an idea of basically what you're doing, but then after a while, depending on what you're having more trouble with, if you're having trouble with the bosses, you really decide to run in with Lair, and if you're having trouble with the stage itself, you go in with Palette. Truthfully, though, I prefer Lair because the bosses aren't really that big of a deal for me, and Palette is nerve-wracking to listen to, so you don't.
Oh God!
If you're on edge, which during the later phases of X8, you're gonna be on edge. You don't want to run in with Palette screaming at you to, "Hey, Link, 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 listen, listen, listen." You don't need that, and you certainly. Alia is just kind of basically, she's definitely been toned down quite a bit from her previous incarnations, because Alia was almost...
Can you hear me? I can't talk to you, can you hear me?
Alia was definitely a Palette in her younger days, but now it's kind of just more like, are you there? Huh. Weird, I guess the signal's out of range. Oh well, I'm gonna have some coffee. Palette's over there just like... and you're thinking, please calm down.
She eventually gets to the point where she's just like,
XX, I'm talking to you. XX, I'm talking to you. I'm trying to reach X. What? I just want to talk to you. Bye-bye.
You don't have to yell. I mean, Palette is just so shrieky and hard to listen to, whereas Lair is like, Zero, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you're not there. I won't bother you anymore.
She's
and
very
she
demure.
Yes, she is demure and ladylike, and Alia is sort of between the two. She's not as hyperactive as Palette is, but she's not quite as polished.
We know Alia, and so
yeah,
it's cool.
We're good with Alia. I mean, we like Alia, we like Lair, and Palette is like spanking fodder, so, hey, we're all happy, right? I mean, Palette can just go back to the corner with the closet with the EXE3 haters.
EXE3 haters!
Yes. And
I do really, have to say that being able to go back and play through the game with them was such an awesome Easter egg.
That was the coolest Easter egg ever. Being able to play a Mega Man game as a girl. I mean, that to me, that's just like, wow. You guys
seriously awesome,
care about the opposite sex, and you're not just like basically keeping them in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant where they belong. I mean, no, that was really cool of them to do. And as a result, I don't feel like Shadow the Hedgehog every time I play that game.
Yeah. I thought it was really awesome to see Lair carrying around the Sigma sword.
Oh, yeah, and the Z Rapier. Oh, man. And that game has fun weapons. Oh, Axel got a huge improvement in that game over X7.
Axel was... I did not mind playing as Axel during that game.
Axel was fun to play as during that game. The Spiral Magnum, I mean, like, the minute I get that default weapon...
seriously, every time.
I love that gun. It is, like, it is such a cool gun.
And I
Axel's-
love that they listened to the fans for Axel and made
Made
him
him
basically the X series equivalent of Zero or of Base.
Yeah,
Forte.
the rapid fire was something he badly needed because
Yeah, and come on, just being able to just like, oh, Icon has lock on to can hit things. No, he needed the rapid fire. He needed to be able to aim his gun in any direction. They listened, and even the minor things like double jumping to activate the hover jets. That is something he needed in X7, and I am so glad that they really, really listened to fan feedback for Axel for the next game.
Yeah, because Axel in X7 was like a poor man's X, which is fitting because you don't get X until you've done stuff. But
Yeah.
X8, Axel is his own character, and, being able to play as all three hunters at the start of the game was really nice. Zero also felt like he got a lot of improvements in that game, too. Of
Yeah,
course,
considering his range was like severely borked in X7.
and, here he is in X8. He's a little more agile. He's a little more with it. Of course, Axel, I love the fact Axel doesn't run out of ammo for any of his weapons. So Axel still kind of plays the role of basically being your spawn camp boy. You throw Axel out there first to deal the vast majority of damage, and then you send in one of the other two after he's done his job. But he does his job better, whereas in X7 he was basically an extra life meter with really no other practical purpose.
Agreed.
In X8 he actually gives you incentive. The other thing I love about X8, I love the fact that they got rid of that stupid, crappy Rescue the Reploids game that got so
Yes, I'm
old
so
and-
glad to see that vanish to never return.
Oh man, that alone was what made X8 playable, because you don't
And
have to...
and the fact that they replaced all that, like the big important stuff, with big force metal things that you could find in the stages, really, that's what the series thrived on from the beginning. Is okay, go and find a sub tank, go and find your heart tanks. It's good that they went back to that route, but at the same time changed it around a little bit so that it felt fresh and new while still being basically the same thing.
Not only that, X is mix and match armors. He's got 2 sets of armor, or you can mix and match the parts to make your own. And then
Yeah,
of
that
course,
was cool.
Then of course the ultimate armor. I mean, X got dealt such a good hand for this game. It makes you want to play as him again. And the fact that you can upgrade all of your Maverick Hunters equally, that was just a beautiful touch.
Yes, that was the big thing missing from X7.
I hated that about X7, because you're sitting there and you're like, do I stack Zero and Axel because I have them now, even though X is the best character in the game, or do I deliberately hold off and you can't save the upgrades, because if you run past a Reploid and don't save it, inevitably they're going to get wiped out, and
More often than not, yeah.
Yeah, and in X8 you don't have to worry about that, because okay, you might have to replay a stage a couple dozen times to get all of the force money that you need, so to speak, to buy your upgrades.
Yeah.
And you might have to go out of your way to get all the rare medals and that sort of thing. But when you do, it's worth it. Whereas in X7, going out of your way to get everything was actually detrimental to your cause, because you would not be able to max anybody out. Whereas X8, you can max out whoever you want, and as a result, it made for a much more enjoyable, playable experience. And once again, I think we're past the statute of limitations of spoilers on this, so I'm just going to go ahead and mention-
just throw it out there.
I'm going to throw it out there. I like the fact that X8 does not have Sigma as the final ultimate bad guy.
But still, I like that, he's still important enough to send him off in a spectacular fashion. I mean, his final form, the form you fight him in, is epic enough that it fits him. It's to a point where he is, he's come back from the dead so often that his body is just withered and really just
Sigma.
barely even there.
Sigma is so far gone, and he got more and more surreal as the games went on. I mean, original Sigma, it's Green Jedi, lightsaber Sigma man, and then of course, Sigma Head. Then you have the second game with wireframe Sigma Head, and third game with giant robot Dr. Light beer drinking Sigma Head, And then just,
Bomb and charge for the win.
yes, then you have X4.
And then followed by the return of the wireframe Sigma head.
Yes. Then you have X4 Sigma, who I don't even really remember that well.
The Grim Reaper.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper Sigma. There you go. You have X5's giant Sigma head. I'm noticing a pattern here. It's like, I'm serious.
No, the Sigma head has always been, a theme.
Series staple, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have...
You will always fight him in his, I'm on two legs, more or less, form, followed by some variation of a giant Sigma head.
Then you have X6's Sigma, which is Zellophane. And you're thinking, this guy is just...
What that basically is brain.
It's, zombie
the
Sigma.
Sigma zombie.
Yes, Zomba Sigmi. And
Yes.
then
Followed by the
X7.
the Sigma 1000.
Yeah, this duo Sigma of X7. And then, after you're done
Oh,
dealing
no.
with...
X7 I thought was interesting because, Sigma's progressively... deteriorating and getting less and less impressive. And then in X6, he's basically, I'm really far gone. And then, in the next game, no, haha, I can fly with guns as powers now.
Yeah, it's basically Optimus Sigma. And then you turn around and it's the Sigma Gundam. I mean, there are just so many names for that, and they're all horrible. And then you turn around in X8 and it's Matrix Sigma. And it's like, this is cool. It's like, he really is on his way out finally. And so in other words, X7
That was just such a cool artistic representation of that too.
Oh yeah, because it's like, we talked about this a while back. I don't think I've ever talked about it in ELB with you, but I know this has been a subject of discussion numerous times. A really nice touch for the graveyard in Battle Network 6 would have been to see the Navis inside the actual tubes, inside the actual graves. And maybe sort of like a flash frozen, right as they were being deleted, like basically the final snapshot, like seeing Elec Man wrapped in a tornado of leaves, or, like Flame Man being doused by a wave, something kind of like that, a sort of neat graphical representation of the graveyard. It would have kind of given it a more somber feel rather than just... Pete Man's dead, here he is. Oh yeah, and guess what? So is everybody else. Okay, fight BX Navis now. And... or RVs. I'm sorry, they were RV Navis, that's right.
And I always thought that, the teleport tubes in X7 were really sort of along those lines, kind of a cool thing. These guys are dead, fight basically their ghost data, I guess you could say it.
Right.
I always thought that was probably like the coolest teleport hatch room ever.
The fact that they were all recolored was also a really nice touch too.
Yeah.
Because it helped you differentiate the fact that they were obviously far gone. I like that about Irregular Hunter X as well. Like when you fight the Maverick bosses, the reconstructed versions, it's obvious they're just drones. The real ones are they're long gone. And so it kind of gives you a sort of good feeling because you're not sitting there basically worried at night. Is Dr. Wily going to build another Metal Man? And is it going to be the same Metal Man? And of course, you have the indestructible Cut Man and Guts Man, but those guys just don't die. And that's because they were made by Dr. Light, who can't make robots that shoot up. But I mean, you look at just the beauty that is X8, and you want to talk about replay value? X8's got replay value.
Oh yeah, no, I sat there obsessively playing that game for like a month until I was sure that I had squeezed every little thing that for completion purposes, trying to get every little thing I could find.
That's the thing about X8. It's just... Whereas X7 tried to be polished and stylish.
And have replay value.
Yeah, X8 is like... X8 learned from X7's mistakes, and X7 took one for the team.
It turned to X7 and said, "You're doing it wrong."
It did, and X8 said, "Let me show you how it's done, am I right?" And it swept the team with butter. But... I mean, X8 is a good game. X8 is as good of a game, and I said this last column, and I'll say it here. X8 is as good of a game as X7 is bad.
Yeah.
So, like, basically, in other words, X8 is the mirror world version of X7. Oh, granted, X8 has a couple of nitpicks. I didn't really care much for the Dynasty stage with Gigafish Volt of Man, and I didn't really care for the
That stage could never have come back, ever.
And the silly little hop on the ride chaser and go snowboarding in Avalanche.
Yeah, really, those was really just, it felt like a chore.
Yeah, it did feel like a chore. And then, of course, there's Avalanche Abomasnow stage, where you get to the final area, and if you don't have Sunflora's weapon, I'm just naming Pokemon because I can't even remember what the stupid things' names are. The Maverick bosses in X8 are visually impressive, but their names are dumb.
Yeah, I just can't remember their names for the life of me.
So dumb, like Bamboo Pandemonium. I mean, their names are dumb, and it's like that was his name in the Japanese version too. So it's like we can't even write that off to dubbing. But whatever, if you have Optic Sunflower Man's weapon...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then you can get that thing that's over, behind the ice. But, oh, hey, guess what? If X dies along the way and you're down to, like, 0 or somebody, well, you can... Or, no, actually, it's the exact opposite. You have to keep both, like, X and 0 alive and get them to the
Exactly,
end of
because there's a freaking armor capsule there, too.
And, yeah, and you have to have 0 double jump you up there to get it, and then you have to have X to actually receive it. I can't tell you how many times I played that stupid... And the worst part is there's no way to die there, so if you, like, get to the end and only one of your guys made it, you can't even commit suicide to go back through and come back with 2 fresh hunters. No, you have to go fight the boss or alternatively teleport out of the stage and then come back so you master that stupid little snowmobiling exercise. But beyond that, that's about the only nitpick I can come up with X8. I mean, other than that, it is a really good game.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to say it other than it is a really good Mega Man game.
God, yes, it is so polished. Honestly, that is probably, if any of the games on this list had to be the best game in the entire franchise, I'd have to say that X8 would probably be it.
It really would, as far as the series goes, because X8 it's a joy for the eyes, it's a joy for the ears, and it's a fun game to play. It's a long...
Oh, and don't get me wrong, it's not like it's a walk in the park either. It does have its challenges, so if you're looking for that, it sure has it.
But it's not as brutal as the previous X games are. I mean, the previous X games, like, X6, and it's collision detection of click and play plus 5.
Yeah, seriously.
La 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 la, I'm walking, I fell off a cliff. Walking, fell off a cliff. Walking, fell off a cliff. Where have we seen this before? Oh, that's right.
Zero.
The Zero series. Thank you. I'm walking, and my wind-up shoe fell off a cliff. And it's just... Yeah, they blew all their monies on the animation sequences, and...
Oh no, it's out of budget.
Out of budget, exactly. To heck with the rest of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, and all of you things in the closet, you EXE3 haters, you. Thank you for listening to our tired, rum-dum ramblings of Rockman. We hope
I am so tired.
I am so tired. I want some pudding.
Pudding and some, like, crack to keep me awake.
No thanks. I'll have chocolate milk.
Chocolate rain.
Chocolate milk Go in the kitchen, Mom, and get me some chocolate milk. Too busy playing Halo to listen to you. Chocolate milk. No, anyway.
That was Counter-Strike, actually, I think.
Whatever, I don't care. All first-person shooters are the same. Ooh, burn!
Ooh, burn!
Okay, now that I'm done alienating the rest of our fan base, thank you, all one of you that are left and listening to this. MegaMan, stop running me down on your blog, and to all the rest of you, good night.
Yes, thanks very much for holding on with us and dealing with this madness. We at least hope that you're entertained by our complete lack of coherent language skills.
And with that being have said, am the good. Night to you, and all your fish are belong to base.
Good night, ladies and gents. This is Breakman EXE signing out.
Good night, ladies and gents. This is Flashman EXE signing out.
迫り